Hi, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Carter. I love talking about movies, music, comics, and games, everything like that. If you're interested in any of that, feel free to subscribe. I haven't made a video in a minute. Been a little busy with work and school and everything. I just kind of wanted to do like a little quick review series leading up to the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania on Thursday. It's like Tuesday right now, so I have no idea when I'm going to get this out. Hopefully tomorrow. But I checked out Ant-Man again tonight, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it because I haven't made a video in a minute, and I'm burned out on doing history homework right now, and I need a break for a minute, so why not make a YouTube video? But Ant-Man is directed by Peyton Reed and stars Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline Lilly. Honestly, I've loved this movie ever since I saw it. I saw it like opening night back in 2015 when it first came out, as I usually do with all the Marvel movies. But I've really enjoyed this since like day one. So starting out with the positives, I think this is just like a really fun movie. It's a great palate cleanser in the MCU, coming after like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Age of Ultron. Coming after those kind of like heavier films with high stakes, just comes Ant-Man, low stakes heist film. Just a ton of fun, focused on like family, and it has Paul Rudd, who's like the most likable dude on the planet, as Scott Lang. It's got Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, which is great casting. Has a fun story, low stakes. It's just about a heist trying to prevent the construction of the Yellow Jacket and the distribution of it. I think it plays best to its strengths, just being like a super simple story about a guy trying to reconnect with his daughter and trying to redeem himself. And I think it's honestly very effective. I really enjoy all the morality with Scott Lang and how he's trying to become a better person for Cassie, and how hard it is since he's been an ex-convict. And they just do a really good job of making him seem down on his luck, but also resourceful. And even though he is a criminal, he's very relatable. He's a very likable guy, and you don't really like have a problem rooting for him this whole movie. And so, plus since it's Paul Rudd, he's just like effortlessly charming in the role. Makes it super easy to root for the guy. So I really enjoy this movie, honestly, for a multitude of reasons. I'm one of the few people that actually enjoys Darren Cross Yellow Jacket. I think he's really fun. I think Corey Stoll just brings like the right amount of like insanity to the role, where he's just like super unhinged and gradually goes off the rails until at the end he's like spouting like classic supervillain, I'm gonna disintegrate you, stuff like that. It's fun. It's just a very fun, unassuming movie, and I really enjoy it. I understand that it's got all the criticisms of following the MCU template, having a most basic villain, which I agree. I don't think Yellow Jacket is anything to write home about. He's just super disgraced by Hank Pym, and he's crazy and he wants money. Typical supervillain stuff, but I think it's just fun. I've said that probably a million times, but I honestly think that's the best way to describe this movie. Very simple, very fun, and every aspect of it kind of builds together. The humor is great. Sometimes it goes a little overboard, I think, and the jokes don't always land, especially with kind of undercutting emotional moments, but I'll talk about that a little later. But I think this is where the MCU really started to find its stride. Really started to, it was in its stride, going on, a streak of Age of Ultron, which I really enjoy, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, coming off all those movies and Phase 1, capping off Phase 2 with Ant-Man was like a genius idea, and it jumps right into Phase 3, where, the heroes are pitted up against each other in Civil War and split apart. And I think that Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, Scott Lang, is just a great character to kind of go throughout the Marvel universe with, because he's just like an everyday guy. He's the most normal dude in the MCU, probably. He's not a soldier. He's just like some engineer that, happened to commit a crime and stumbled upon Hank Pym's work. And I think that makes him, very relatable, so it's easy for you to follow him throughout Ant-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Endgame, and hopefully Quantumania. And it's just super easy to kind of like get honed in on his life, see what's important to him, see what matters. And I think this movie does a great job of doing that. This movie also has, incredible effects, especially when Scott shrinks. Some of the green screen when he's fighting Falcon isn't the best, I noticed tonight, but all the effects when he shrinks, like, it looked incredible in 2015, and it still holds up. I mean, 8 years later, it looks fantastic. It looks better than some of the volume stuff they're doing with Quantumania. It looks way better than anything in Love and Thunder. All the effects hold up very well in the flashback scenes. The de-aging with Michael Douglas looks phenomenal. I have no idea how they pulled that off, and it's incredible. He looks great. But I think all the effects, they just look phenomenal. On Yellow Jacket, when he's rising out of the pool, you can see the water droplets coming off, stuff like that. I freaking love that. I'm no VFX artist. Certainly cannot critique them. I can never do what they do. But when they do stuff like that, freaking looks phenomenal. I love it. It looks wonderful. The quantum realm looks a lot darker in this movie. I do enjoy how they kind of expanded upon that in Ant-Man and the Wasp, kind of making it more colorful, more dynamic. They do a good job of making it scary, I think, in this movie, which is what they're going for a little bit. But yeah, I think the performances all around are great. The comedy is good. The effects are spectacular. The story, well, being simple, it services itself, and it services Scott's character and Hope and Hank's character as well. And my final positive is just how creative it is. I really love the ending battle, and I think the last half, honestly, is so strong, especially with how creative it gets with the fight scenes, with how terrifying it would be exploring, being an inch tall for the first time, going on to the suitcase fight with Yellow Jacket, and how fun and creative that is. They're jumping through the keyholes. There's, lifesavers floating around, and the Disintegration by The Cure playing, and then they crash that family's barbecue, and Yellow Jacket floats out of the pool, and then moving into the last final battle, where it's a battle in, a 6-year-old girl's room, and seeing everything with that. That's so fun. It's so creative. Every time I watch this movie, I'm just like, you know what? That's such a fun idea. It's so creative that you could only do with Ant-Man. You can't have Spider-Man fight the Green Goblin in like a 6-year-old's room. And so I think being that creative and thinking outside the box here is really refreshing, considering how the MCU often gets criticized for its final battles just being formulaic, over-the-top CGI fests. Obviously, there's CGI used in this one, but it's used in such a way where it's, taking these believable spaces and putting them, shrinking, Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket down, using Thomas the Tank Engine, growing it, enlarging an ant, enlarging Thomas the Tank Engine, just fun stuff like that. I think it works really, really well. I always have a great time with the last part of this movie, and then Yellow Jacket's death is, grotesque. I never really noticed, but, he, shrinking, and he's, screaming. Dang, man, you really did him dirty, but you know what? He was going to kill your 6-year-old, so that's valid, And getting into the mix a little bit, I do think that this is where, the MCU formula kind of tended to be a big issue for people. It has the same thing as Iron Man, where it's got the hero's journey, which, again, I don't know why people are getting up in arms about that. It's been around for as long as literature, and it'll be around as long as literature lasts. Oh well. But I do believe, I do see the criticism of Yellow Jacket just being a mirror of Scott, because he literally just is. But he's got blasters that sound like the AT-ATs from Star Wars, which is pretty freaking sick. I do enjoy Yellow Jacket, so I can't really say a lot there, but I see what they're coming from. And the biggest mixed aspect in this movie is just probably maybe the formula working against it. It is very simple. It is very easy to follow, very fun. However, you can't really dive into it like how some people would want to. Me personally, I have no issue with not having to dive into what makes Ant-Man tick and what makes the villain tick. I'm satisfied with Yellow Jacket just being a very simple paint-by-the-numbers villain. I know that I am probably a little hypocritical for that, because I've critiqued movies in the past for having paint-by-the-numbers villains. For some reason, Yellow Jacket just works for me in this movie. I can see why he wouldn't, though. And then I also think that sometimes the humor doesn't hit as well as it should. I think that's something the MCU has had a problem with since, Iron Man 2, and I think it's something they'll have problems with for as long as they last, as long as they keep trying to do comedy. Comedy's subjective, I understand, but however, sometimes it just doesn't work for me, and Ant-Man is no exception. The older I get, the more I see that some of the jokes don't quite land as often as they should, or as well as they should. However, I'd be lying if I said this movie doesn't make me laugh. So yeah, that kind of rounds up the mix for me. Honestly, not a lot there, as, again, I love this movie. But my biggest negative with this movie, and my only negative, is just how the MCU overall as a whole has always had an issue with, balancing humor and balancing emotion, balancing that tone. I think Ant-Man does a good job of it. However, there are a lot of moments, especially in the middle, when Hank and Hope are finally mending that rift between them, and Scott just breaks it up with, a stupid joke. It's not funny. It didn't make me laugh. It just kind of ruins the moment and ruins, quite frankly, that scene for me. And I can see, sometimes it may not ruin it for everyone. However, for me, I think that they need to do a better job, and they definitely do in some movies, of, mending that rift between humor and emotion. But I think overall, Ant-Man is an awesome movie. I love rewatching it all the time. It's probably one of the most underrated MCU films, in my opinion. Just a really fun time. If you ever want to turn on a movie, kick back and relax and just like laugh and enjoy it and not be like underwhelmed or disappointed, I'd recommend Ant-Man. It's a great time. I really, really like it. I've said that a million times throughout this review, but I just wanted to kind of get this out because Quantumania comes out soon. But I'm sure you guys have probably seen Ant-Man. What'd you think about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Are you excited for Quantumania? Are you nervous? Let me know. As always, I'm Carter. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.